Right, so this morning, the president's border czar, Tom Homan, he says the administration will fight a new judge's ruling stopping immigration arrests without probable cause in Southern California. That judge ordering Homeland Security to stop detaining people based solely on race, spoken language, or occupation. More on that. CNN's Harry Enten is continuing to track with all of this news the shifting view of the American people as this immigration crackdown continues. How is the president doing on immigration at this point?
In a word, Kate, oof. What are we talking about here? Take a look at this. Trump's net approval rating on immigration. Got 5 numbers for you across the screen here. A lot of focus on Gallup at minus 27. That's horrible. Quinnipiac University minus 16. That's awful. Marist is bad at minus 9. Ipsos is minus 8. Fox at minus 7. Bad. So going from your left side, bad, to just downright terrible on the right side of your screen, the American people have turned against President Donald Trump on what was his best issue, one in which he had a positive net approval rating for most of his term, and arguably the issue that got him, of course, the GOP nomination all the way back in 2016. And one of the issues, of course, he used last year to quite a successful degree.
Absolutely. Is there signs that this is affecting his overall approval?
Okay, so you see this here, and then the question is, does this actually matter to folks? Why don't we zone in Hispanic voters, right? Because obviously a lot of the immigrants who have been affected by this have been Hispanic voters in terms of the immigration crackdown. Take a look here. Trump's net approval rating amongst Hispanics. Remember, Trump put in a historic performance last fall among Hispanic voters, did better than any Republican nominee dating all the way back since we have data in 1972. His net approval rating among Hispanics in February was pretty gosh darn good for a Republican at minus 2 points. Look at how far it's fallen now in June, according to CBS News YouGov, at minus 26 points. And I should note, CBS News YouGov is not alone on this. This is what we see in the averages as well. Donald Trump was doing historically well for a Republican amongst Hispanics in terms of his net approval rating, and now he's basically back where he was during his first term, which is quite a low approval rating, one in which has brought his overall approval rating down amongst the entire electorate.
And one thing that has been very clear is that as this crackdown has continued, it has put immigration enforcement, ICE, in a whole new spotlight across the country. What are the numbers on ICE now?
Yeah, what are the numbers on ICE? It's not just affecting Donald Trump, it's affecting ICE as well. ICE's net approval rating. In Trump's first term, the average was 0 points, right? So right there on the bottom, as many approve as disapprove. Look at where we are now in June of 2025. Minus 17 points all the way down. So the bottom line is this immigration crackdown not being viewed popularly by the American public, bringing Donald Trump down and bringing immigration and custom enforcement down with him.
Thanks for continuing to track this, Harry. It's really interesting, the trend lines that you've been seeing all along.
Thanks, Kate.
We're going to start with the issue which arguably helped sweep Donald Trump back into power, immigration. He promised to carry out the largest mass deportation in history. But is the administration's plan backfiring? We're going to take a look at scenes like this playing out in Southern California, where hundreds of farm workers were arrested in a raid by ICE agents. One man died from his injuries Saturday after falling from a greenhouse during a raid last week.
It's causing ICE to get more aggressive, more cruel, more extreme, and these are the results. It's people dying because of fear and terror caused by this administration.
On Friday, a federal judge actually issued an order for Southern California barring immigration arrests based solely on race, spoken language, or a person's job.
This federal judge's ruling is ridiculous. We never ran our operations that way. We always built our operations, our investigations on casework, on knowing individuals that we needed to target because they were criminals, because they had conducted violent crimes against individuals in their communities or had overstayed their orders, had violated federal laws, and that is always how this is done.
So the ruling in California comes as Alligator Alcatraz begins filling up in Florida with hundreds of migrant detainees. According to a list obtained by the Miami Herald, more than 250 people. Out of that 250 people, of the 700 held at the site, the minority have no criminal history or pending charges.
We were very suspect of that because they have a bracelet system of red, yellow, and green, I believe. And, we could hardly get up close to any of them, but it was clear that there were not many with red bracelets. But then the Herald story comes out this morning and shows that hundreds of these 900 detainees have no criminal conviction. And that was our suspicion to begin with.
So we want to talk about how this is going over with voters. The latest Gallup poll shows 62% disapprove of how Trump is handling the issue. These are the worst numbers he's gotten on immigration during his second term. Joining me to discuss, Sarah Fisher, CNN media analyst, Lillian Young's CNN political analyst and White House correspondent for the New York Times, and Zachary Wolf, CNN senior politics reporter and the author of the What Matters newsletter. Zach, I really want to start with you because you've been talking about the fact of the spending, and I think you've been reporting about this as well. ICE is about to become one of our largest federal law enforcement agencies?
The largest federal law enforcement agency, and by a good bit. I mean, the new bill, the law, the great big beautiful law, I don't know what we're calling it at this point, but that is going to supercharge ICE. So if you don't like, what you're seeing, the masked agents, all of that, there's going to be a lot more of those people as soon as they can start to hire them. They're going to have this infusion of cash. There's, a lot more money to build detention centers. So this is like the template, and it's going to get a lot bigger when they can make it happen.
Here's how people are feeling about it so far. I think Gallup has shown this sharp shift where you have 62% now disapprove of Trump's handling of immigration. This is a huge reversal from just a few months ago. But this is what he promised, and I think people understood that. What do you hear in those numbers? Disapproval of how it's being carried out, disapproval of how it's gone. Help me understand.
Yeah. Well, he definitely promised mass deportations and promised a historic campaign. But even when you look at some of the polls that were taken during the presidential campaign, there was a bit of nuance there. People definitely wanted deportations and definitely wanted to crack down on the border. But those polls would often sometimes show that some of those same people did feel that there should also be a legal pathway to citizenship. Since the beginning of this term, you've seen Trump's aides came into office really emphasizing going after undocumented immigrants with criminal records. Well, we've seen a broadening since then, right? Did people ask for the deportations of immigrants to a terrorism prison in El Salvador, a crackdown on college campuses, the detaining of a Tufts student for writing an op-ed, really a use of deportations to crack down on dissent as well.
And it's been, I think, underscored by people like Joe Rogan. There's sort of other folks who supported Trump during the election, even on this issue, and they're raising kind of the loudest questions most consistently.
Yes, and Rogan was one of the folks that came out and questioned the deportation of a man to El Salvador. That constituency, we call it the manosphere, right? They're not explicitly conservative, but they have huge audiences online. They're very, very powerful to reaching young voters, a lot of who voted for Donald Trump. And so if they're going to come out and start to question some of these policies, that's why I think you see these mass shift in the polls, because these are people who make big impact now in politics. Also would be remiss not to note, I think one of the discrepancies in the polls of how people feel right now is because this is a very visual raid.
Right.
Because you have in LA, of course, all the pushback, you have the smoke. People see visually how frustrating and how big of an impact this is having on communities. That is very different from sort of these more silent efforts where you go in quietly, you litigate with someone, maybe you pull them out in handcuffs quietly in the back.
Yeah,
that is not what this is.
Have you noticed online people on Reddit, et cetera, posting little videos of ICE detentions that are happening in their neighborhood or on the street surreptitiously? One of the things that's been interesting is watching the partisan view of immigration shift. Now, the question they were asking here was just, do you think immigration is a good thing? And you see this shift from 2024 where you had even independents, just 66% said that. Now that number is 80%. And I think it shows that, go ahead.
No, you know what was so funny to me? Remember when Elon Musk came in and he was advocating on the visa issue for immigrants. He was saying, look at me, I'm a huge entrepreneur. I brought electric vehicles to this country. I'm sending most of your supplies up to the space station. Look at what an immigrant can do. That broke MAGA, right? You had Steve Bannon and other Trump allies saying, this is not going to work out. Where did Trump side? He sided with Elon Musk. And I think he did it because he knows that this idea of Americanism is secretly, deep down, it is rooted in immigration, and there's a sentiment around that, both parties.
And fundamentally, I think all of this is reminding people of that instead of the opposite.